Welcome to The More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate. I'm Rebecca Kushmiter, a progressive feminist from Kensington, Maryland, and I'm filling the moderator's chair because our esteemed colleague Kevin Kelton is still on vacation. We expect him back anytime now. Kevin, we miss you. We can't wait to have you back on the show. And tonight I am joined by...
DJ McGuire, a conservative feminist who opposes the use of nuclear weapons against hurricanes from Suffolk, Virginia.
And Greg Matuzek, a common sense liberal who's recording on, this is August 25th, Elvis Costello's birthday, who still believes what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding from Cincinnati, Ohio.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Please follow us on Twitter at #MPU Podcast and on Instagram at MPU Fan Club. We have great photos that we put up. Kevin should be posting vacation pictures, and maybe I'll share some of the things I've been reading, although there's been a lot of murder mysteries in my summer reading pile. Nothing too intellectual. Anyway, so, let's nuke a hurricane here, guys. What the hell? Who suggested that?
Was it, maybe he was talking about the Miami football team, the Miami, Florida football team.
No,
University of Miami football team. Maybe he just hates them.
He was not referring to those hurricanes. No, this was, of course, the President of the United States, who, according to Axios, we found that out just half an hour ago, thought that... nuclear weapons can be used to disrupt hurricanes.
Could they?
His exact phrase was, I got it. This is according to Axios. I got it. Why don't we nuke them? They start forming off the coast of Africa as they're moving across the Atlantic. We drop a bomb inside the eye of the hurricane and it disrupts it. Why can't we do that?
Now, I'm not a meteorologist or a nuclear physicist, but I watched all those movies in the 80s about what nuclear bombs do, and I feel like that's a bad idea.
Well, it's funny because I'm sure Trump is saying the exact same thing. He goes, look, I'm not a scientist, but I'm pretty sure this would work. It's the same guys in Congress, these Republicans who are like, I'm not a scientist, but I'm pretty sure global warming is a hoax. I don't see why you scientists are thinking, I just don't understand. Seeing as... you're scientists and I'm not, a couple nukes would probably be good every year. We would have longer summers.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is the one year that I'm actually looking forward to hurricane season because I saw the list of names that the Weather Service is going to use for these tropical storms, and they've actually included, Rebecca, spelled correctly. No one ever spells it the way I spell it, so this is a really exciting hurricane season for me, and I don't want Trump nuking on my parade here. This is bad plan, Trump. Don't do it. So other plans that Trump has had that he still considers good are the trade wars, which are we winning, DJ? Are we losing? Do we need more cowbell? What's happening?
Oh, it was a bad week for me, in particular Friday. Trade war, for those of you who remember Matthew Broderick's breakout film War Games, the last line, or the penultimate line from the computer system Joshua at the end, it best describes any trade war. A strange game, the only winning move is not to play. But Donald Trump is playing because he's an idiot. So he threw up more tariffs on China because the Chinese government threw some additional tariffs on our goods, and then he then informed all businesses in the country that they are, quote, hereby ordered to find alternatives to doing business in China. And then he actually cited the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 and as his authority for doing this. So,
but he didn't write this in an official declaration. He didn't, go before a joint session. He didn't even, make a speech from the Oval Office. He did it on Twitter.
Right.
He hereby ordered businesses
right
via Twitter.
he did it on Twitter, which means the hashtag I hereby order became one of the most popular ones of the day. Very funny.
I hereby order fries with that.
Yeah. So, but this is basically where he is going. He is looking to basically completely disrupt supply chains all around the world, and he is trying to find any way to discourage Americans from doing business with or in China, except for the way that would have actually been beneficial to American consumers and businesses, which is to stay in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have done everything that he would have wanted to do with these tariffs without actually hurting the American people. It is unbelievably maddening to me that, and again, this is one of the few things Donald Trump has been consistent on. Donald Trump has been consistent about three things: racism, isolationism, and protectionism. And this is one of those three. And so he is going to slap tariffs. He said his people said that he said at the G7, well, yeah, I have some regrets about what I've done regarding China. His aide said what he really meant was that he regretted not putting higher tariffs on Chinese goods. This is what he does. This is who he is. And sadly, we are all going to suffer unless and until the Democrats can help de-elect him next year. And if they don't run an actual trade dove, the most singular issue where Donald Trump is vulnerable, his economic governance of the country, they won't be able to use, because they'll be just as stupid on the trade war as he is, unless they nominate somebody who recognizes this trade war must end.
So I've never seen a red MAGA hat, Make America Great hat, that's not been made in China. So
I haven't looked that close. They're usually
on
people's heads.
I have.
And you're not supposed to take people's hats off when they're walking around, I'm told.
No, I literally ask. I say, "Excuse me, may I see your hat?" And usually it's at family
get consent
functions
before removing the hat.
See your hat.
Excuse me, may I inspect your hat? And it's something I point out humorously, and usually my family gives me my usually familial greeting to me, and they say something unkind. But yeah, they're all made in China. In which case, does that mean he's not going to get his hats in China anymore?
Are these the official campaign hats, like from the Trump store, the Trump merch, or are these people buying them off Amazon or from street vendors in DC, and they don't actually have a connection?
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where they unofficially. It doesn't matter who the final retailer is. The initial distributor is the Trump campaign. They get it out to wherever they get him to.
People who apparently aren't going to be wearing MAGA hats include the Fed chair. Trump is trying to blame him for everything that's wrong with the economy, because forecasters are saying that it's going to slow. I think, DJ, you sent us a link this week that showed some contracture. And everything indicates that the growth can't continue. And so this is apparently Jerome Powell's fault, not the trade war's fault? Is that the line of reasoning out of the White House?
That is the desperate line of reasoning coming out of the White House. Now, granted, I will freely acknowledge when it comes to the Fed and when it comes to monetary policy in general, I am very much on one extreme end, in that I think interest rates should be higher than what they are now. I think they need to be normalized back to the pre-financial crisis levels, which they are not. So I very much approved of what Jerome Powell did as Fed chair last year. I really did not think the rate cut this past summer was necessary. I don't want to see any future rate cuts. So that's my opinion coming in.
Okay, I'm going to admit to significant ignorance right here. I don't understand why changing interest rates actually matters. What does raising interest rates do? What does cutting interest rates do, other than save Trump's businesses a ton of money? So what actually does this tool accomplish?
The theory is that lower interest rates encourage businesses to invest in new capital, new factories, and things like that, because it makes borrowing the money less expensive, and therefore they would be more inclined to borrow the money needed to make these investments. That's essentially the idea. It also, lower interest rates also encourages more consumer spending. That's the theory behind it. My concern with that, though, is that we are also starting to see in the microeconomic realm the fact that interest rates this low for this long have created situations where old firms who should really just be put out to pasture and their capital spread out among entrepreneurs and other businesses, that they're being allowed to continue because they can just keep making low interest payments on whatever debt they have and survive as companies. They're called zombie companies. That's the term. What is happening?
That's a great technical term there.
Yeah, I know.
People.
Hey, we economists come up with weird things. Also, low interest rates means that bonds are priced higher than they normally would be, so they become essentially assets like stocks. People treat them like stocks, which is the exact reverse of what they're supposed to be. They create asset bubbles that exacerbate wealth inequality and income inequality. There are all sorts of knock-on side effects to excessively low interest rates, which is why I don't like them, why I prefer higher interest rates. Higher interest rates also strengthen the dollar, which means American consumers are in better position against inflation, and they're better positioned against higher prices of imports. Donald Trump likes lower interest rates, in part because it saves him money on his interest payments, and also because it means a cheaper dollar, which means our exports are less expensive and our imports are more expensive. That means the trade deficit figure falls, which is all he cares about because of his ridiculous war with accounting. Donald Trump believes that the Federal Reserve should do whatever he wants to help him in his trade wars. Donald Trump wants to be able to manipulate the currency, and he should not be allowed to do that. No president should be allowed to do that. Jay Powell should be allowed to continue to do his job to the best of his ability. We have seen what happens when Fed chairs respond to political pressure. That's what happened in the 1970s, and economists call that period the Great Inflation. Inflation was at 14% during parts of the 1970s. In order to fix the problem, Paul Volcker had to raise interest rates as high as 21% just to fix the damage that had been done by his predecessor. That's not what we want. That's not what we should want. Jay Powell understands that. Donald Trump does not.
And the increase that he threw out there wasn't high. We were talking 0.5% or something like that. It wasn't what Volcker was doing.
Say again?
When
what Powell
he did
did?
raise interest rates, what
oh yeah,
Powell
no,
did, we're talking incremental. It's not
right. Exactly.
It's not like suddenly getting a mortgage is going to come with a 10% interest.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. It wasn't anything like what Volcker did, and in fact, interest rates are still not at the level that they were during the Greenspan era. They are still, by historical terms, they are still rather low. And I myself am not comfortable with that. So again, the issue here for me is two things. One, I don't like the president trying to influence the Federal Reserve Chair. No one should like that. But I also don't like the policy that Trump thinks is correct. I think he is wrong. Again, quelle surprise.
Okay. But how can he be wrong when he's the chosen one, DJ?
Oy vey Maria.
Greg, why don't you take this one? Explain
Wait,
how Trump is the chosen one.
Hang on a second. I thought he was king of Israel, too.
Both,
Wasn't that
yes,
one?
both, yes. His LinkedIn profile just gets longer by the day. Chosen
oh my
one,
gosh,
king of Israel,
I would hate to see what his business card says. Actually, is it a business card or does he just give like a tablet? Okay, in his defense,
I'm sure he has a deck of 52 business cards which give all of his wonderful titles.
Yes, exactly. But he didn't call himself the chosen one, and he didn't refer to himself as king of Israel. Someone else did. And now, did he disagree with him?
Yeah, I'm sorry. If somebody called me the king of Israel, I'd be like, hold up there, bro. Like, not taking that crown.
Right, and you're right. He should have said, well, hold on. But
he should have said nothing, because wasn't the guy who said it a Nazi?
No.
Are you sure?
Wayne Allen Root? I don't think Wayne Allen Root is a Nazi. I would not say that Wayne Allen Root is within the mainstream of American politics.
No, but
I don't know if he's a Nazi, though. I don't know that. I'm not.
Okay, I couldn't remember who said
right.
it.
So. He may be a Nazi. He may. I don't know what he does at night.
He is a nut bar. That much I will say.
Yeah. So
I'm careful when I throw that word around. Well,
many of the people Trump retweets are Nazis, so
yes,
it's not outside the realm of possibility.
And you know what? We do know that Trump's one of many Trump's weakness is flattery. So, you know what? If I were to tweet, that Trump guy, I'm pretty sure I saw him walking on water. He would probably retweet it.
Of course he would.
Try.
Said it.
Get on Twitter, Greg.
No, and yeah, he's guilty of repeating things and retweeting things that people have exaggerated, and this is one of his things. Someone just recently said this about me. I didn't say it, but I'm saying people are talking.
Yeah, many people are saying.
Yes.
Many people are saying. Now,
many people are saying I'm the king of Israel. And I'm pretty sure that Jesus Christ did not get his reputation by saying things like that. Like, many people are saying that I'm the king of the Jews, or things like that. I mean, he did not say that. In fact, I believe he was quite humble.
That does seem to be a characteristic that Jesus and Trump do not share.
Exactly.
Now, so Trump right now is in France at the G7 summit, and there was a surprise special guest there who Trump is a bit taken aback, taken a little off guard when this guy showed up. DJ, tell us who the surprise arrivee was.
It was the Iranian foreign minister who was invited by France, apparently, to discuss what is left of the Iranian nuclear deal of 2015, which, contrary to Trump's assertion, he did not destroy or eliminate. He simply withdrew us from. That deal is still in place, and apparently Zabari, I believe is his name, visited the G7 location to talk it over with some of the European leaders. We have yet to see any reaction from the president. We know some of his aides have whispered that it was something that was disrespectful. It was really a dumb idea. They don't know why President Macron chose to do this. But in any event, that's who he was. So Donald Trump now has his excuse to go home early if he wants. He now has his excuse to pour a bunch of acid to be his usual self on Twitter and rip everybody else in sight. He would have done all those things anyway, but I have to say I am surprised that Macron would provoke him in such a manner. I'm not really sure what Macron was thinking. I'll be honest.
Yeah, that was my question. What benefit does Macron gain from that? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Probably trying to get a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, what if, follow me here, Macron says, what if I got America to re-sign or re-enter the Iranian nuclear deal? What if I got this guy to be the last person to talk to Donald Trump? Remember how this works. Remember, the last person who talks to Donald Trump is the guy who programs him and pushes the refresh button, and all of a sudden he goes, "Hey, this doesn't sound like a bad deal." Remember, it's not our money that they're getting. It's actual, what if they drew simple pictures, with giraffes and whatnot, and eagles and stuff like that. And all of a sudden he goes, they're back in. They're not bombing planes and whatnot. The Iranian people get something. We get something. Our sailors go home. There's war averted. You know what Macron gets? He gets a new mistress, and he gets a Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay, hold the phone here. Contrary to the normal routine regarding French presidents, Macron appears to be mistress-free. He appears to actually be loyal to his wife, who is 25 years his senior. And by the way, that was something that apparently the French voters talked about even as they were electing him 2 years ago.
Okay.
And wasn't she his English teacher or something?
Something like that, yes.
His literature teacher? Yeah, it's an odd relationship.
I didn't say he has one. I did say he has one. I say
yes, but
right.
my point is I don't think he's going to get one as a result of this. I also, again, Macron he's had a very strange week because Boris Johnson visited him, the new British Prime Minister visited him a couple days ago, and Macron started talking about the fact that, well, the withdrawal agreement that would let Great Britain leave the European Union can in fact be changed if the two sides can come up with something, and blah blah blah. And he covered in a bunch of other word salads, but it was considered a very significant concession. Macron has just really had a very strange week, and I'm wondering if he's just off, because this is the idea that the Iranian foreign minister visiting the G7 would suddenly lead to Donald Trump re-entering the Iranian deal. That if Macron actually thought that, his aides are really giving him terrible advice, because he really should have known better.
Where is he in his election cycle?
His next election is in 2022.
Okay, so he's not throwing any Hail Marys today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe he served really good chocolate cake.
That does motivate Donald Trump. We have seen that before. Now, one thing that doesn't motivate Donald Trump is leaving Russia out of reindeer games. He feels very strongly that he wants Russia back in. I guess it would be the G8 if Russia joined again. And he's also not so sure that Kim Jong-un's doing anything wrong by lobbing missiles in the general direction of Japan.
Yeah, the Japanese prime minister did not take to that very well.
No, he seemed to feel quite differently about that.
Yeah. I do not know the Japanese cultural version of an eye roll, but I'm pretty sure Shinzo Abe did it at the G7.
Oh, no, I could hear it from France. It was an audible eye roll, like a transatlantic eye roll volume. Yeah.
I have said this before. There are several things that Japanese people do not care for. Okay, and bad sushi, cold sake, and missiles being lobbed at their country. Those are the three things. Okay,
and
period.
Can you blame them?
Not necessarily in that order. Just so
let me think about that. No, probably not necessarily in that order. Yeah, period. I mean, yeah.
But it is kind of astonishing that here's the president of the United States, historically the leader of Western powers, looking our allies in the eye and griping about murderous dictators not being invited along to the party.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's just, it's a reminder of how starkly different the Trump administration is from every other American administration since the close of World War II. There's a great
column from Thomas Wright of the Brookings Institution in the Atlantic. It came out on the 21st. Is that Wednesday? Yes, it's Wednesday. We have another. That was Wednesday.
It's 2019. The 21st could have been 6 years ago. We don't know.
Yeah. No, this is August 21, 2019. So we have another That Was Wednesday moment here on the More Perfect Union podcast. But he wrote it in the Atlantic. And the title was "Trump Has Defected," and this is the ending paragraph, which just explains it all. One uncomfortable truth is already inescapable: free societies and autocracies are at odds with each other over human rights, the rule of law, technology, freedom of the press, the free flow of information, and territorial expansion. At this particular moment, it is not sufficient to say that the free world is without a leader. He has actually defected to the other side.
You are correct. I completely agree with that. Trump's version of leadership, his dream of what the presidency looks like, doesn't look like being a public servant. It does not look like administering to the American populace. It looks like a dictatorship, and he finds himself constantly at odds with the reality of how the chief executive position has been written in our Constitution and the ways in which the public interest and his personal interest diverge from one another.
Yeah.
Now, we are still trying to replace Trump, as it's impossible to forget with the primary season going on. And this week we actually saw some shifts in the Democratic field, a few exits, no new entrances though. So we've got Hickenlooper planning to run for the Senate, and Moulton and Inslee just dropping out. Now, Hickenlooper running for the Senate, this is actually a pretty positive development. A lot of people have been wishing that some of these guys who have no hope of being the nominee would focus on Senate campaigns. What do you two think of this?
I was actually surprised that Hickenlooper... my understanding had been that the Colorado Democratic Party was pretty satisfied with its Senate field. Clearly that is not the case, because Hickenlooper felt that he could jump in, and there's been no real backlash against him. So good for him in that case.
His numbers as governor were pretty good, right?
Yeah. This was nothing against him. Hickenlooper is clearly a good candidate. He is, he's double digits ahead of the incumbent Republican, Cory Gardner. But I had thought at the time that the Colorado Democratic field was fairly solid, at least in the eyes of Colorado Democrats. Now, they probably would have... Obviously, they are happy that Hickenlooper is in. But I guess it initially surprised me that Hickenlooper was able to make this switch without any real friction among Colorado Democrats. It does, however, the fact that there was no real friction should be something that, frankly, Mr. Bullock should look at, Governor Bullock.
Governor Bullock is blowing it by not running for Senate in Montana. He's not even going to make it on the stage, never mind carrying, all the way into the convention. Mm-hmm. He should absolutely run for the Senate.
Well, we still have 2 weeks before he's not going to make it onto the stage.
No, the deadline is the 20. The cutoff date is the 28th for the 28th of this month.
That's Wednesday.
For Wednesday. Yeah, once again, that was Wednesday, or it will be Wednesday, for getting the number of donors you need and getting the poll support that you need. If you don't do it by Wednesday, you're not in the September debate.
Right.
And there are a number of candidates on the bubble for that, too.
Right. And additionally, back to Hickenlooper, Hickenlooper will be a good senator. I mean, he'll be a good voice for Colorado. He'll make good choices. He'll be a good senator. And a lot of the people who are right now trying to be president would make great senators.
Agreed. There's nothing wrong with being in the Senate. It can be an extremely rewarding lifelong position. Just ask Ted Kennedy, who made being in the Senate an art form. There are John McCain. Today's a significant anniversary in that he died a year ago today. He was one of the lions of the Senate. There's no shame in holding the title of senator.
But it should be noted that both Ted Kennedy and John McCain ran for president.
Moving on to the Republican primary, because suddenly it got a lot more interesting today. Joe Walsh, deadbeat dad, former congressman, talk radio host, and Twitter personality, threw his hat in the ring. And I thought it was an interesting development because Joe Walsh has been so critical of Trump and comes with more of a following than Bill Weld comes with. So he at least creates dialogue. Kevin had a different take on it. Greg, do you want to speak for Kevin here? Can you do a Kevin Kelton imitation?
No, I do not actually, because I want to be the one who says, Kevin, you're wrong.
All right.
DJ?
I will present the Kelton theory.
You'll take the Kelton
you
arguments.
take Kevin, and then I'm going to say,
I will take the Kelton theory.
Kevin, I disagree with you in a friendly way.
Okay. Now, as far as our absent colleague is concerned, a primary against Donald Trump actually can help Trump in the following ways. He can build ground organizations in all 50 states earlier. He would look stronger and more popular than he actually is by winning primary after primary. He gets valuable airtime during the primaries, and again, he'll look stronger because he wins all these states. It would help focus Trump on the campaign. It would mobilize his supporters for a primary, which means they are more likely to vote for him in the general election. And it makes the GOP convention, more dramatic and more interesting. That is the Kelton theory. I have some issues with that, but before I do that, I will let Greg take the first crack at those. Greg?
First of all, I really miss Kevin. I'm going and
we all miss
really
Kevin.
do.
Kevin feeds us our best setups. Like, all the best jokes come when Kevin's here.
I know.
I'm not sure what I miss more, his segues or his real forceful nasal comments where he insists that he's right and it's so easy to disprove him.
It's no longer his birthday, so we can say stuff like this.
Of course.
God, you guys.
No,
All right, so Greg, why is Kevin wrong?
So it's not that he's wrong in the sense that, yes, Trump will win, okay? But for none of these reasons, okay? The point is, Joe Walsh will get beaten easily because Republican voters in the primary refuse to admit they're wrong, okay? No one wants to admit for the past, at this point, 3 years, that they have been backing the wrong horse, okay? And with Trump's approval rating in the GOP at 85%, okay, the never-Trumpers do not have the votes. So for them to go, and we make excuses for our sides. We do. I mean, in Bill Clinton, I made excuses for him for years and years for his behavior. Well, maybe it was this, maybe it took me, 15, 20 years to finally come up and to say he should have been thrown out of office for what he did to Monica Lewinsky. It was wrong. But I justified it because he was a Democrat, because he was my president, he was my side, and that's what's going to happen. The Trump side will say, well, this or that. Sure, he paid off a porn star while going for election, but he didn't do it while he was in office. All those terrible things he's done. Sure, he mocked a handicapped person. Sure, he's done these terrible things. But look at the economy, and it won't make a difference to these people. So he's going to be trashed, and Donald Trump will not even have to open up any offices. He won't have to send out a mailer. He'll just have to keep on doing these rallies, which are just terrifying. That's it.
Well, and I agree with you in large part, but I do think, like I say, Joe Walsh has a following. My Democrat friends now will retweet Walsh or post Walsh on their Facebook pages because he has actually been doing a very good job of articulating conservative-minded opposition to Trump. And so in terms of owning the news cycle, I think Joe Walsh will be able to point out Trump's negatives in a way that will be more audible than they would be if it was just Democrats saying them. So I think that's where he becomes an interesting spoiler. Obviously not a big enough spoiler to win the primary, but another voice from within the party. The call was coming from in the House to say Trump is indebted to foreign interests. Trump is morally unfit to hold this position. And I welcome hearing that voice coming from a different direction.
I would say I think there are some things where Kevin has a point and some things where I think he doesn't. For one thing, Trump does not need a primary to build ground organizations. He launched his re-election campaign committee 2 years ago already. He's already building organizations. He doesn't need he doesn't need a primary to do it. In fact, he's building them faster than local Republican committees want him to. I still have numerous Republican friends. They email stuff back and forth, and they actually talk about some of the things where the Trump campaign is trying to show up in their committees, and they really don't want them there because it gets in the way of what they're doing. So he's building organizations already. Yes, winning primaries will make him look stronger. It will give him a chance to get some advertising up early. But it will keep his focus away from the Democrats. So he will spend his time beating up on Joe Walsh and beating up on Bill Weld instead of beating up on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. So it will distract his attention in a way that I think will help the Democrats. The two biggest problems that come out of this are, in my opinion, are one, what happens when Trump wins? Because he will. Does Joe Walsh suddenly say, well, Donald Trump's a Republican nominee, so I'm going to swallow hard and support him because I am a Republican? In which case, any advancement from a Walsh candidacy basically disappears. I know Bill Weld won't do that, but I don't know if Joe Walsh won't do that. The other thing is,
Joe Walsh has nothing to gain from party loyalty at this point.
Well, that's possible.
You know, he might Justin Amash this.
And he might, but he might also the other thing he might do, and this I guess is third thing, is that this might give Trump the narrative where he can say at the convention, I understand what Walsh and Weld are trying to do. I understand that I need to do things differently, and I will be different in a second term. That dangling the carrot in front of the horse thing that Donald Trump was so good at in 2016 about how he would be so presidential you can't believe it after his election in 2016. We obviously saw it differently. There will be voters who will be fooled again to think that, he'll be different in his second term. It's easier to do that when you have a primary challenge. The other thing, though, is a Weld and Walsh primary challenges means that in places that have open primaries, like my state in Virginia is an open primary state. Anybody can vote in any party's primary. I don't think that applies to Ohio or Maryland. I think it does apply to California.
We have one in Ohio.
Open or closed?
It's open.
It's open. Okay,
really?
so
I didn't know there were open primaries in Ohio.
So it matters in Ohio too. Is that anti-Trump moderate and conservative voters who would normally might consider voting, blocking left-wing candidates in the Democratic primary to ensure they get somebody they can vote for in the general, might instead decide to chase the windmill with Joe Walsh or Bill Weld. That kind of thing hurts Biden. That kind of thing helps Warren. I'm not sure what it does to Harris at this point. It helps Bernie because it means the kind of crossover voters that would help Joe Biden scoop up delegates in a Democratic primary are instead going to vote for Bill Weld and for Joe Walsh. That was one of the things that I think actually hurt Hillary Clinton in her campaign against Barack Obama, was that when John McCain came to the fore, so many moderate Republicans and independents said, oh, wait, we can vote for John McCain because he's going to get nominated. And so they voted in the Republican primary instead of the Democratic one. And that made it harder for Hillary Clinton. That could make it harder for Joe Biden next year.
It's a lot of chess pieces still on the board. Lot of moves still to make. Apparently, Dave Chappelle is hosting a giant block party in Dayton with Kanye and Lady Gaga. Have we been invited to that, guys? I'm just seeing this added to the rundown
I actually put
today.
that in because I wanted to tell you guys about the sacrifices that I put up with right now, because the block party is going on right now. Dave Chappelle, to give back, Dave Chappelle is probably one of the greatest human beings. He lives about an hour away from Dayton. He's putting on a huge show to honor Dayton, the city of Dayton, after the horrible events. And he's brought star-studded people. Thundercats are there. Kanye's there. Rumors are that Lady Gaga's there, but I'm not sure about that. The fact of the matter is that I'm doing this podcast, and I'm not there.
Dayton's not exactly around the corner. Ohio's a large state. It would take a while to get to Dayton.
Me?
So I don't think you can't.
It's 20 minutes from my house.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought Dayton was further than. Okay. Then I don't know my way around Ohio as well as I thought I did.
No, literally, it's like 25 minutes from my house. I should be there right now. Me and Kanye should be talking. I could probably convert him. Or he could get me a really
Convert
cool...
him to what? Oh, that's right. Kanye's on MAGA energy.
Right.
No, he's not on MAGA energy. He's on Kanye energy. You can't make Kanye not Kanye.
Either way, it would be a great time. But I'm super proud of Dave Chappelle for giving back to his community. He lives here in Ohio. He lives in a town called Yellow Springs, which is super chill.
I've just filked Kanye. I'm not saying she's a hurricane, but she ain't messing with no nuke.
But yeah, Dave Chappelle said one of my favorite things ever in his interview on Inside the Actors Studio. He talked about when he told his parents that he wanted to be a comedian and an actor. And his father said, what happens if you're never successful? And his father was a teacher at the time. And Chappelle said to his father, well, what if my definition of success is to be able to live as well as you do as a teacher and to make as much money as you make as a teacher? And I've always found that the coolest way of redefining success and, you know, managing your expectations for your life. If you can live the life, a comfortable life, doing the thing you love, it doesn't have to be wild, outsized Kanye type success. It can just be good enough. And I've always liked that about Dave Chappelle. Also, he's funny as hell, and I used to love watching his show.
Oh, he's funny as hell, and he's thought provoking. I think, he's awesome. And like I said, he lives in Ohio, which is a great state.
And by the way, Chris Lindsay of the NHC has commented on the idea of nuking hurricanes. The response is, needless to say, this is not a good idea.
But you know what is a good idea?
That keeps on giving.
Listening to this podcast was a good idea, and thank you for doing so. If you enjoy what we do here and you live through the nuking of the hurricanes, please check out our website, mpupodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/moreperfectunionpodcast, and share a link on your Facebook timeline so your friends can discover us as well. And Greg, what are you looking forward to in this coming week?
Hopefully, I was looking forward to block parties with famous comedians and rap stars, but all my dreams are dashed. So